Hello, everybody. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives, and it's Friday, so we're going to have our Friday live chat with John and Marcia. Hi, Marcia.
Hi, John. Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for being here with us.
And thank you, Marcia, for making time for our show every Friday. And boy, what a beautiful day. We've been out even doing some yard work before the show, got our hands dirty, and well, we hung up a new hose reel. That's going to be fun to, not have to carry it around everywhere. It's going to be
Trip over it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So boy, the flowers are going crazy. We've had a lot of success with our planting last year of a whole lot of bulbs, so they're all coming up. It's really
You've done some amazing work out there. Everybody stops and they say, "Oh, your house is so pretty with all the flowers." And I have to tell all the neighbors, I don't have a thing to do with it. It's all John. He's planted so many beautiful flowers and then even cut some and brought them inside in a vase or a vase, depending on where you're from.
yeah.
So Jenny is from Texas and says, hello. Hello, Jenny.
Hey, Jenny, how are you? Well, this is your opportunity if you'd like to toss a comment or a question in the chat room. And the best place to do it is on Rumble channel McDuff Lives. We also will monitor YouTube chat and X chat as well as Facebook chat. For those of you on Facebook, you might have got the notice that Facebook is no longer going to be archiving any shows more than 30 days. So if any of our shows are ones you want to take down from Facebook, well, now's the time to do it because they will start being
Purged?
Yeah. Purged. That's it.
Ditched?
Yeah. Wrecked, destroyed, obliterated.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, obliterated. I
Because
like
I
that.
hate that you're doing that to me,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a bunch of music videos up that I'm going to lose, but maybe I'll repost them on YouTube.
Music videos. Oh, you mean where you're playing music?
Yeah, me and Steve, remember?
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
There's like 50 videos up there from.
Oh, no, you have to save those. Save them somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're great little duets. If you go to Facebook and look at a channel called Hambone Hickman, that's what I called it because my buddy Steve.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Hickman.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see a whole lot of our little duet presentations. We had a band we called the Blarney Stones, and well, hope you have a chance to look at it over on Facebook.
Jenny is sitting outside with her tea watching the birds come and go. Here's to you, Jenny. We just put out fresh bird food yesterday, and this morning I was watching some grackles and a blue jay and a goldfinch and, of course, a cardinal. We get so many cardinals here.
Well, there's so many things going on my X feed. I don't hardly know where to start, but I would point out that this morning I had a find. I just was doing some Googling, and I Googled Stalin along with M.P. Chumakov, the famous biological weapons expert that Adam Finnegan has introduced to us. And there we found a report translated into English in old typewriting, like this goes back a long ways, in which M.P. Chumakov went out into Siberia and discovered that a certain kind of tick gave people encephalitis. And this excited him so much that he studied it and got encephalitis himself.
Oh, my.
Yeah, he lost the use of an arm and all kinds of terrible things happened to him. But the report says that this was being immediately transferred into the biological weapons department. So, I mean, if you don't believe that encephalitis, tick-borne diseases have been weaponized, you're going to have a hard time getting past this one. I posted it, and Adam Finnegan posted it on his X feed too. So, I think, gradually the walls are closing in on them. They're going to have to admit these biological warfare efforts that have been going on for more than 100 years at the expense of us common people that just trust the government and think, oh, they would never do that to us. We're Americans.
That's right.
They can't do that to us. We have, individual rights. We have a constitution. Well, when it comes to a little thing called national security, they have found a way to get around the Constitution. And that's been the tragedy of our lives, ever since the 1947 and 1948 Act creating the National Security Council and
Right.
all of the horrible, horrible things that they can do.
I'm getting nervous about this whole Constitution thing. I wasn't. I was fine. For a long time, everybody said, "Oh, this new administration's going to do this, and this new administration's going to do that." And I thought, there is nothing this new administration can do if it's not in the Constitution. And if they try, then we have the Constitution and we have a system of checks and balances to make sure that that doesn't stick. But man, I'm not seeing it working so far.
Well, Marcia, it just reminds me again of my dad and my sister Lisa, who's a year younger than me. And when I have tried to open this topic to my sister, about the possibility that my dad was cancer-sided, which I believe he was,
Mm-hmm.
she's too uncomfortable with the whole idea that we can't really talk about it.
Right.
But what she does say is that she said, well, as Daddy said, we have a separation of powers under the Constitution, and if one branch goes wrong, the other branches will correct it. And so many people believe that. And that's our faith as Americans, that
Right.
we have faith in our government and our system of separation of powers. But, I always point out there's two big problems with that. Number one, the control of the media. When the media is what's giving everybody their information. So if the media is controlled in such a way that people are lied to and bamboozled and they don't see it, then they can't put into practice the constitutional formula for straightening things out, because they don't know that there's anything wrong until it's too late. And the second thing is that after the Constitution was adopted, and this is the story of Sullivan and Cromwell, which I've studied so hard and published a number of my videos on the genesis of that law firm, Sullivan and Cromwell. Is that's what they did first, was that they figured a way to consolidate all of the state corporation laws into a uniform commercial code, that every state is bound by the same rules. And by doing that, they've made corporations super powerful.
Right.
That
Right.
the idea of a corporation, as far as the founding fathers was concerned, was a one-time deal that you get together some capital, to accomplish something in the public interest. The typical example is you need a bridge to get from here to there, because over there is where the flour mill is, and you living over here, and everybody's like, we need some bread. So let's get some money together, form a corporation, build the bridge. When the bridge is built, we dissolve the corporation and we all have a better life. But no, the corporations don't die anymore.
No.
They just keep on and on
And get
on.
stronger and stronger and stronger.
And they own the media.
Well, because they can, because in the 90s and during some of the deregulation in the 90s, they changed all the rules about media ownership to allow the corporations to become media monopolies.
And Corky's here. Good morning, Corky Goss, our good friend. RFK Jr. and staff need to read the sleeper. Oh my God, do they?
Yes, they do.
We started a constitutional crisis beginning in 1963. Absolutely. The assassination of President Kennedy was not just an assassination of a leader. It was a coup d'etat.
Yep.
And when people will start looking at it like that, will understand that, no, President Jimmy Carter, he might be a nice guy. He built a lot of houses, for people with his own hammer, right? He's got some great press, but everything that went on was Brzezinski, running the foreign policy and setting up, things like the wars that we've had to endure in Afghanistan. And the destruction of America as the good guys and turning us into a useful body of military and law and experts that are not used for the benefit of the American people. And that's what the election was about. The election was, let's return power to the people. Let's return to the American dream. And let's get back to the Constitution and the separation of powers. That's what the American people voted for. The folks that don't understand MAGA, well, that's it. They just wanted to get their America back.
All right. But then if that's the case, then why is the executive branch ignoring the judicial branch?
You brought up the most important
Yeah.
case of the day right now, and it's really is a hot case right now, and that is the Garcia case.
Right. But before we go there, I want to know, Garden Girl 24 mentions this Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. I don't know what that is. Do you?
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, that's a great idea to go over that. The Smith-Mundt Modernization Act was in fact a Smith-Mundt Gutting Act. Smith-Mundt is a law that came in back I think in the 30s or so, when they were reforming the banking industry after the stock market crash.
Yes.
And what it says is that you cannot mix the wait a minute, am I getting it right? No, this
No,
is
that's Glass-Steagall.
That's Glass-Steagall. I wanted to talk about. I get those mixed up all the time. Sorry. Smith-Mundt is about. What is it about?
Well, maybe I need to Google it, or maybe Garden Girl can fill us in.
It's about propaganda. Sorry for my mental lapse there. Smith-Mundt is about propaganda in that United States government has been able to use propaganda around the world, basically lying in order to control other countries and their governments. But by the Modernization Act, they took away the prohibition of the intelligence agencies doing that to us here at home in the United States. And so repealing the Smith-Mundt, or modernizing it, I guess, was in fact a way to allow legally, if those laws are constitutional, for people to fool us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see how it's constitutional, but has it been challenged? Do we have a Congress that's willing to stand up to this?
There's the question. I'm not familiar with this documentary that Corky talks about, the Corporation 10-part documentary.
No, I don't either, Corky.
I'd like to. That sounds like something interesting if it has a red pill effect.
Yeah.
Good morning, Paula.
Hi, Paula. Thanks for joining us. Seeing the U.S. government clearly, who without fear or favor means it's too damn big, period. Massive reset underway and overdue. There was a famous saying from the Congress leader Tip O'Neill. It was, all politics is local.
Mm-hmm.
It's not anymore. To me, I would say that the politics,
I agree.
The politics that governs us here in Charles County, Maryland, come from Annapolis, come from Baltimore, come from big powers behind those powers. We are just basically a rural community with a small city in the middle of it, but I don't think that we have any local power anymore. And they just added. They said we're going to have an attorney general for our county. Adding an attorney general, as if we don't have enough lawyers.
Right.
We
need more lawyers working for county government.
The more lawyers can fight with each other. And boy, do they know how to ching, ching, ching on that old, retainer.
Well, it's an admission that county government's corrupt and needs someone to keep an eye on them.
Yeah.
That's really what it feels like.
But I think it gets corrupted from the top and not from the bottom.
Exactly.
That's the trouble with corruption.
That's what's so ironic about it, is the people at the top saying we need an attorney general. And I'm thinking, why? What are you up to? What do you know that your colleagues are up to? But anyway, I don't want to discuss local politics.
Right. But but that's the trouble, is that people, no matter where you live, you feel powerless. You don't have any way to keep them honest or affect change.
That's right. That's right.
Hello, Brightmore. How are you today? Strange sell-off in dollar raises specter of investors losing trust in Trump's U.S. AP report today, with Deutsche Bank saying, quote, the safe haven properties of the dollar are being eroded, unquote. Well, Deutsche Bank is not on our side. They're a huge controlled deep state institution, and they would say that. But the dollar obviously is in jeopardy when we're putting all these tariffs on people, and people are going to fight. And that means, people will lose the confidence of buying a U.S. Treasury bond. That was one of the big controversies this week, was when President Trump has had to, well, that was last week, but he had to back off of his big tariffs on almost everybody except for, of course, China. But those tariffs were driving people out of the bond market. Actually, our interview with Harley Schlanger, most recent, I think it was this Tuesday, in which he illustrated that attack on the bond market is in fact being generated from the City of London.
Right.
And all of those folks that would love to see our dollar fall, or just get control over it once again, because that's the effort, is Trump is trying to regain control over our economy. And it's a difficult job.
Well, Brightmore goes on to say China has been making loans in yuan to central banks desperate for cash in Argentina, Pakistan, and other countries, replacing the dollar as the emergency funder of last resort. Oh, look. Good morning, Kathy Sue. So nice to see you.
Kathy Sue, my dear, I owe you a phone call. I know I got your message about 2 weeks ago, or even 3 weeks ago, and you've been very patient. I owe you a phone call, and I'll get back to you real soon, our dear friend, and good morning to you.
Corky says, all politics is now cosmic.
Cosmic with a K. Yeah, that reminds me of the old Janis Joplin album. I have it over there, the LP. I got them old cosmic blues again, Mama. It's the name of one of her songs, Cosmic with a K.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she was, I was crazy for Janis Joplin when I was in those late teens.
Trump is at loggerheads with Powell and the Fed and seeking to limit its independence. Yes, indeed.
And again, this is another one of the most important points that's going on in the legal field right now is, did we create a golem? Did we create this Federal Reserve, which has no strings attached? It can do whatever it wants to. It says that it's independent. It's supposedly a federal agency, but all of the assets of it are owned by big banks. And that means that it really is a privately owned institution. If that's the case, then why do they get to run our monetary policy? The Constitution says, monetary policy belongs to the Congress. And I say Congress cannot delegate that to anybody, whether they're named Jerome Powell or anybody else that's, been running the Federal Reserve. That Federal Reserve is killing us. And so it either has to be brought under the control of the president or somehow eliminated. My preference would be a new law that says that the chairman of the Federal Reserve is appointed by the president. to serve at the pleasure of the president. Make it simple, because we can't have the banks running the country.
No, no. Trump is heading in a dangerous territory with the Federal Reserve, which, as we know, is not federal. He may be making a JFK move.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's right. And that's the thing is that, remember he was like, he was buddies with John Jr. And, hopefully, he would work to uncover the real facts behind the JFK assassination, but he hasn't done anything.
No.
He hasn't done nothing. And, it's been so frustrating. I didn't get my hopes up very high because we've been frustrated so many times. But if you don't reveal what happened in November of 1963, then we'll never get our country back.
That's right. That's right. As long as any theory other than the single shooter theory is what we embrace as our national narrative. No, wait, I said that backwards. As long as the any theory other than the single shooter theory is considered a conspiracy theory, and we embrace the single shooter theory as our national narrative, then the truth about anything is not safe.
Yes. A few years ago, I read, and you can listen to me read it on my BitChute channel, McDuff Uncensored. There's a playlist on that is about the book Rulers of Evil by Tupper Saucy. And this book is basically about the Jesuits. And what I wanted to pass on about that book is that it defines this doctrine called casuistry, Casuistry. And what that is the word that they use when they want to kind of fudge something historically to make it fit the narrative. Okay?
Wow.
So they use this idea called casuistry to say, oh, well, maybe those two things don't actually fit together, but it fits our narrative so well that we'll just say they do. And that has happened in history many, many times. Our dedication to the truth is under attack all the time because intelligence agencies are running by their rules, not by our rules.
Well, in this whole business of AI being now, what they're doing is they're planting false information in the AI programs. It's to sabotage each other and to sabotage AI and to cover up the truth and instead favor the narrative. And so AI suddenly becomes less and less dependable.
Yeah, I gave up on Grok, but people keep trying to bring it back. I just don't believe in Grok. I don't believe it has the ability to analyze facts and spit out a reasonable conclusion. Maybe it needs more information. Maybe it hasn't sent its web crawler over enough websites, but I don't think it's going to get it. Maybe if you need to know a chemical formula or a mathematical equation or somebody to do the calculus for you, I guess it's useful. But as far as trying to define, events and to make reasonable deductions from known facts, I think it's completely worthless.
Absolutely. Brightmore is talking about the shooting yesterday in Florida. 'Tis the season of the false flag by incels. And now there's an expression I've never heard. Involuntarily celibate men. FSU shooter, special needs son-in-law of a deputy. Oh, he was a son-in-law. I'd read that he was a son. Okay, son-in-law of a deputy used deputy's firearm in shooting.
I didn't follow the story. Were many people killed or injured?
2 people killed. I think I saw 6 people injured.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't students at the college. They were, I guess, people who worked there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that David Hogg is back in the news. He wants to be a big Republican. I think he wants to be.
Seriously?
Yeah, I think
he's running as a Republican.
Well,
oh my gosh,
that was my impression.
You could be right. I'm stunned, but okay. Actually, I could see maybe it makes sense. Get more anti-gun people in the Republican Party, I guess, could be a strategy.
Well, maybe
they do
I'm
that.
wrong.
I said I didn't want to talk local politics, but in this county, you can only get elected if you're a Democrat, and so everybody runs as a Democrat, whether or not they really are, and they're Democrats in name only, dinos. So maybe that's who knows about this David Hogg. I never liked him. But anyway.
No, and his, oh my God, enough said. False flags.
Yeah.
And we didn't have all that many false flags during the Biden administration, but we had tons of them during the first Trump administration.
Interesting. Brightmore says that there was an active shooter drill underway during the shooting.
Excellent.
That's, I guess, good timing.
Yeah.
I
mean, just like COVID, just like, remember Charlie Hebdo? Does anybody remember Charlie Hebdo?
Oh, yeah.
The great cause célèbre of Europe and France and all of everybody in the European government, from Angela Merkel to all the rest of them, held their hands crossed, just like, it was a great kumbaya peace movement.
Everybody posted on Facebook, I am Charlie.
I am Charlie. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a live exercise going on at the same time. And if you look into that, if you even scratch the surface of it, you see that was a false flag. There's the way they manipulate us,
Yeah. Quilting Nurse earlier said, good morning, Eminem. And now Quilting Nurse explains McDuff and Marcia, or Marcia and McDuff. Actually, I like that top billing. No, actually, I don't. You should always have top billing.
Marcia, we're gonna let you be the lead in our Marcia and McDuff show. I like the ring of that.
I don't know, McDuff and Marcia. I think you should get top billing. It's interesting. Someone said, truth is classified. I rejoined, but not goodness nor beauty. I like that, especially goodness or compassion.
Yeah, truth is classified, but yeah, we can have goodness and beauty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. AI controlled by the creators. Yes, indeed. Oh, and Garden Girl says, you're right. Oops. There we go. Why is this not popping up? There we go. No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Running on the Republican side, an infiltrator. There you go.
I'm just going to check and make sure I was right about that. David Hogg on X says, I know there are a lot of disagreements that Democrats and Republicans have, but can we please, for the sake of God, agree that politicians should not run our central bank? If you think this is a good look at the countries where politicians control the central bank, well, isn't that something?
Yeah, he's listening to you.
Saying the exact opposite of what I'm saying. I'm saying the president should control the central bank.
Right.
Or at least the executive branch. We can't have if you want to have a bank that is not controlled by the government, then it's not a central bank, okay? It's a private bank, and they're not going to get full faith and credit. If you want the United States government to back up a bank, then I think the United States government should have a veto power over the bank.
I think a lot of people don't understand that banks are not part of the infrastructure. They think they are. They think that the banks are like the utility company and, some of these other things that are basic to our society, but they are run by private entities.
Okay, I was mistaken. I got it wrong. He said in unprecedented move, DNC official to spend big to take down fellow Democrats. David Hogg wants to take down some safe
Okay.
incumbents in the Democratic Party. Well, I would like to see a whole lot of incumbents from the Democratic Party taken down. Maybe that's why I thought maybe he was looking at the Republican Party, but no, I was wrong. Sorry. Apologize.
So he's trying to get rid of existing Democrats,
Yeah.
but not by being a Republican, but by being the alternative for the Democrats.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd love to see Schumer gone. I'd love to see all of them.
Well, I'm assuming he's running in Florida. What is he running for?
I don't know.
Oh,
He probably wants to be the president, though, doesn't he? He's 25 years old now.
well, he's got 10 years then. Hopefully
Yeah.
he's just running for some Florida office.
Yeah. But they sure do give him a lot of press. All right. Sorry about that false idea.
Brightmore says current PSYOP to put crosshairs on red-pilled young men who are being radicalized by the internet. The goal of the Netflix show Adolescence is to foster an image of dangerous young men who ask dangerous questions. Obviously, white incels are being primed as our most threatening domestic terrorists. I haven't watched that show on Netflix, nor do I intend to. But I sure am aware of it. It's getting a lot of attention. I know it's probably, or I think I've read that it is the #1 show on Netflix right now. But even before I read that, it just seems like it was constantly coming into my awareness. So I appreciate this reference, Brightmore, because this helps me to understand what this show is, and it confirms why I don't want to watch it.
Yeah. Those young men ought to get girlfriends.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sure sounds like some myth from long ago.
Incels. I guess that's, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know what it means to say that they're incels and how that has to do with false flags and what they do. But if you look at the people that have been the shooters, they do look like young men that couldn't possibly have a social life.
Right, but I don't know. There's something involuntarily celibate. I don't. Yes, maybe this is all about testosterone, and young men who have testosterone pumping through their veins, and they have no way to express themselves sexually, turn to violence. I don't know.
Happiness is a warm gun.
It's, or they get angry. I think that's what it is. They get angry and they think that the only way to deal with their anger is through violence. But I don't know. I don't think that young men pumped full of testosterone.
I was there. I remember being a young man pumped full of testosterone. It didn't cause me want to be violent,
Right. Thank you. That's where I'm trying to go with this, is that does not necessarily make them dangerous. If it does, then all teenage boys need to be locked up for a while.
Well, that's, that looks like the whole idea of this horrible future that we think is planned for us, where gradually, they're going to just do away with the difference between the sexes, and everybody's going to be
No, they're not.
well,
No, they're not. That's just the silliest thing in the world. I don't know why people go there. Why is that so threatening? But no one's going to do away with the difference between the sexes. You can't.
Vive la différence.
There are going to be some alternatives. They're a small percentage. I don't know why we make such an issue of it.
Okay.
But I am all in favor of the sexes being different.
You haven't read H.G. Wells and, the Fabians and all that crazy stuff.
Right.
It's not like it doesn't have, a bunch of literature behind it. So, but
it is literature.
It is
fiction.
Crazy. It is absolutely crazy.
It is crazy. And I think it's based in fear, and I'm not sure what it is fear of, but Brightmore says Bezos sent 6 women on a historic space flight that lasted 11 minutes. Humorous to see the women standing before Jeff's phallic-shaped rocket to lower Earth orbit. What a publicity stunt.
Well, yeah, and if somebody produced a really well done short video in which they're showing that. I tend to believe that the flight was computer graphics, was CGI. It just looks so fakey to me. So, but the whole idea of putting Katy Perry up there and
Gayle King.
Yeah.
And Jeff Bezos, you don't know who Gayle King is?
Uh-uh.
She is a journalist who is Oprah Winfrey's best friend and kind of came to her role on Oprah's coattails, but is now, I think, the co-host of one of the morning news programs, or I should say news programs. I don't know which one she's on. But anyway, she's a journalist. That's all. She's a talking head. She's somebody who's famous for being famous. And what makes me angry as a woman, and I'm going to rant a little bit here, but what makes me so angry as a woman is that women have really stepped up to the plate in terms of science and space exploration. And over the years, their contributions have been sometimes diminished, but sometimes not. They have been acknowledged. And there are many, many women who have gone into space because they are trained, experienced astronauts. And so why are we glorifying these women like Katy Perry, like Gayle King, like this woman who is Jeff Bezos' girlfriend, who apparently is also a journalist? No, that's crazy. It's ridiculous. Let's glorify the women who were the trailblazers leading into space. Because back in the 70s, NASA said, and this is a quote that I will never, ever forget, that they will only send women into space when women are needed. What the heck does that mean? Needed. Well, I think we know, getting back to testosterone. And that was crazy. And in the 55 years since, women have finally been able to shatter that glass ceiling or break in or whatever cliche we want to use. So this is such a step back to have this stupid publicity stunt, real or not. It's just stupid. Thank you. I'm done now.
A number of our fellow researchers have looked deeply into Donald Barr, the father of William Barr, the past Attorney General and bagpipe player, whose father was the president of the Dalton School, where Jeffrey Epstein was employed as a math teacher. But the father wrote a book called Space Relations back in the 30s or so. And I haven't read it, but I understand that it's about people having wild sexual relations up in space. And then you add to that all of the mystique around Jack Parsons and the JPL project and just crazy stuff that has to do with, crazy sex stuff. That to me, it's a mentality that still exists and wants to come to the surface and wants to retake, the leadership, of this.
Wants to put women in their place.
Yeah,
that
right.
Women are there for sex.
Right.
Thank you, Garden Girl. Very gratuitous. We've been there all along. Yes, absolutely. Mars needs women.
Maybe Katy Perry is the answer, is Bezos's answer to Elon Musk. Like Elon has, maybe he has sex appeal. I don't know if he does or not. He's gross, huh?
Yeah, for me.
All right. Forget that one then. Let's move on. I guess NASA
All right.
intends for traditional wives to be allowed in space. I mean, go back to that generation of Werner von Braun and all of them. They were all sexist.
They were. But I mean, we go back now, well, not now, but what was it, 5, 10 years ago? Suddenly all the stories were coming out about the women mathematicians, plural, behind those efforts. There was the movie that was about the women. I don't remember where they worked. It wasn't in Houston. I think anyway, they were all these mathematicians. And then there was a book called Rocket Girls that was all about the mathematicians in Pasadena, where our nephew now works at JPL. But they were, at the time, it wasn't JPL, it was Caltech. And they were there doing all of the computations for space flight. It was a big room full of desks and all these mathematician women doing all the computations.
It's a man's world.
Corky, sorry. Million Mile High Club coming soon. Brightmore says Elon plans to put robots on Mars. I don't understand this, because Mars is a high priority for this administration, and especially for Elon. So why are they cutting the budgets at NASA? I don't get that.
Well, a lot of people have suspicions about what NASA's real budgets are about. It doesn't necessarily all about shooting rockets. It may well be a way to hide a lot of funding for a lot of secret programs that they've got. I mean, we don't know what's up there in space anyway. We have a branch of our military. What is it called? Space something?
The space dudes?
Space warriors?
Space Force.
Space Force. Yeah. And what is it? I saw a picture of a very, trans looking person dressed as a colonel in the Space Force, but I don't know what the heck they're doing up there. How many of them are there? What kind of ships are they flying? And, that's the thing. That's the thing. I've been saying this all along, is that here we are on the Earth, and, we can worry about what's going on the surface of the Earth, but space is the high ground. And if somebody wanted to take over the whole world, it would sure be nice to have satellites everywhere that could beam stuff down at people and control them.
So you're saying that the scientific missions of NASA are going to be replaced by the military missions of Space Force?
Well, I didn't say that, but it sounds like...
That's a question.
Yeah.
Is that what you are saying?
Not exactly. I'm just saying that there are secret things that they want to do that they can attribute to the space budget and hide the money. It could be anything. It could be building more underground DUMS facilities to hide, secret tech.
Underground what facilities?
DUMS, DUMBS.
I don't know what that is.
Deep underground military bunkers.
Oh, okay.
DUMS. And if you follow Catherine Austin Fitts, she talks a lot about them and how there's $23 trillion missing from our budget over the past how many years, and where did all that money go? Well, she says, there's all of these secret military programs that, underground, under the oceans. You hear people of stories of people seeing mysterious ships come flying out of the ocean and just zipping off like the science fiction spaceships,
Wow. 23 trillion. Kind of makes that 2.2 billion that Harvard was getting, and they're not going to anymore, seems like pocket change.
Well, what she says is $23 trillion is enough to run an entire alternate civilization.
Oh, of course.
You could have, millions of people working, down under Antarctica, with nuclear power or whatever they need, and we would never know about it.
There's a current, I think, Hulu series. I think they're showing it on ABC, called Paradise. It's all about that. And that's what makes me crazy is when this art imitates life or life imitates art. I don't know. I do not know.
And then that sounds like predictive programming,
Exactly.
to put these ideas in, like the movie Contagion,
Right.
which
Right.
a number of our research partners have pointed out as laying the groundation for the groundwork for people to believe that there is this horrible pandemic coming and we've all got to do exactly what the government says. And then guess what happened? A horrible pandemic came and we were told that we had to do exactly what the government says.
Well, I watched that whole series and it's exactly what it felt like. And at one point, I had to put it away and say, I can't watch this right now because the thought of what they are describing is way, way too scary. So I just gotta, but I ended up going back and finishing it.
How are we doing on our chat? Are we keeping up with people?
More or less. Let's see what else we got going on here.
There's Prester John. He says, I bet NASA has them co-ed astronauts getting it on in space to observe the results.
Oh, that would be so creepy.
Yeah, but see, they don't care creepy. Creepy doesn't bother these people. That's what bothers me so much. It's like the horrible mental experiments that they did at McGill University under Dr. McDonald, where they would just strap a person into and give them like hyper amounts of adrenaline and see what happens. Just
kind of like we do with animals,
and try to control their minds by or try to really, what they're trying to do was to blank out all of their memories so that they could construct a new narrative to feed into their mind, so that, okay, now instead of being about mom and apple pie, we're now all about killing bad guys, and that's our whole role in life, to do something that we're programmed to do, as opposed to do something from our hearts. It's a horrible thing.
Yes. Yes.
All right, who's next?
Jonathan Edwards says, I'm tracking formandfunction.com. I don't know what that is. Fitz and Skidmore had the missing money up to 41 trillion. Holy cow.
Yeah. I mean, Donald Rumsfeld admitted he couldn't find 2 trillion, and that was the day before 9/11. Defense Department loses $2 to $3 trillion. Oh, well.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten all about that.
It's true.
Of course, yes. How quickly we forget.
Yeah. And where does it go except for, into secret programs, and people doing those secret programs, just like the Nazis, they don't give a damn about morality or causing pain to a human being. They don't give a damn. These are the people that I thought we defeated in World War II. But no, we just imported them under the paperclip program, and now they're working for, the U.S. government for the benefit of corporations.
William Hogan says Federal Accounting Standards Advisory Board 56 from 2019 or before allows government obfuscation of reporting and, in some cases, outright concealing financials.
National security.
There's always a loophole.
That's what they do. That's what lawyers are for, to find loopholes and make them. That's one thing lawyers are for. I was proud to be a lawyer. I'm proud of my career. I'm proud of serving my clients, and but it's a tough world.
I think that's why being a lawyer was so hard for you, because you cared, because you were proud of serving your clients and you were proud of helping them in very difficult situations, when they had been injured, when they had been incapacitated, when something outside of their control had prevented them from living their lives. And it was in your hands to help them get justice. And that was very hard for you because it was a huge responsibility. And that's why being a lawyer was so hard for you. It wore on you terribly. You worried so much about doing the right thing.
It's true. It's true. I did, and I did not have the best personality for being a lawyer because to be a successful lawyer, you have to put the business first.
Right.
And that's what I see when I look at lawyers out there. I see these are businessmen that have decided that being a lawyer is the best way for them to make money, as opposed to the ideals that goofy people like me went to law school for.
Using the legal system as a printing press. Garden Girl. Good old Rumsfeld. Where did that money go? We'll never know. How are we doing on time?
We have 6 minutes left. Quilting nurse says as she pets her dog.
Well, yeah. We're assuming quilting nurse is a she. We don't know for sure.
Quilting nurse, no, Marcia, we are not animals.
Right.
That's right. We're not animals. We have thumbs.
So do gorillas.
Well, maybe they're not animals either.
Is that how you determine who is and isn't an animal? By thumbs?
Well, yeah. Isn't that the way everybody does it? Let me see. Do you have a thumb? Okay, then you can be a human.
Yay! I get to be a human. Defund the police has morphed into defund your entire government. Yes.
It's funny, you can't just have a happy medium, can you? You've got to be extreme, oh, I hate the government, or yeah.
All right, I'm lost here. All right, I don't know. I think something you're doing is, there we go. F&F is my news aggregator site tracking topics like today. I'd like to know what F&F is. Do you know?
No, I don't. Tell us, Jonathan.
Because I'd like to have a news aggregator site. It's so hard to keep up with everything because the different sources of the news are all going to pick and choose what stories they're going to cover. And then, the major sources of the news, they get to decide what are the important stories, and that's what everybody covers. And I would like to, hear about what's going on in Sudan, for instance. You get so little, and there's a horrible humanitarian crisis going on there, just as horrible as what's going on in Gaza. But who's talking about that? I mean, it's Sudan. Who cares? So F&F, I'll have to go look for that.
Quilting nurse, I got to run, but may I recommend the Colonel's Corner, Operation Gladio? Okay.
Thank you, Quilting Nurse. Thank you for being with us today. Form and function is what is F&F.
And Brightmore Dinosaur on Rumsfeld. Oh boy, one of our other favorite things is fluoridation, pushing fluoridation into U.S. drinking water for Alcoa. And that goes back to Skorzeny in California and Otto von Bolschwing, who was this Nazi that became a corporate lawyer, I think, in California. And, with California, you have the aluminum industry with Alcoa. And yeah, the Nazis used the Nazis fluoridated the water of Germany in order to keep people under control. They knew that it dumbed us down. And so when they come over here and they convince our government to put fluoride in the water, claiming that it's important for our teeth, right?
Right.
Well, maybe it does help your teeth, but I know that, from in Sweden, they told people you could use fluoride in your toothpaste, but make sure and spit it out after you've brushed your teeth. That makes sense. But drinking water with fluoride in it is poison.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we poisoning our people all the time.
Right.
Again, they want us to have short lives. They want us to be disabled. They want us to not have time to figure things out because we're too busy dealing with our health issues or those of our children now with autism and all of these horrible myocarditis conditions, other things that have come suspiciously coincidental with the jabs.
Right. Right. With the jabs and, with other things.
Mm-hmm.
Processed food.
And I think Bobby Kennedy said it right. He said, we know that autism does not come from our genes. It's not a genetic problem. It has to come from the environment.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, he didn't say that it comes from the jabs, but jabs are part of the environment. So he's promising to figure this out in weeks. And I think it's pretty clear that he's going to have to point the finger at the big pharma for the things that they've been able to get us to allow injected into ourselves and our little children.
You know what?
Unbelievable.
I will be stunned if that happens. I will be stunned if he ends up pointing the finger at the jabs, at processed food, which is just so ubiquitous that, it's hard to eat something that's not processed. And the fellow who demonstrated through some very well-respected scientific studies that processed food causes people to eat more calories than they need. And he's just resigned from NIH because of censorship. I hope you're right. I hope that Robert Kennedy Jr. does tell the truth. I get more and more skeptical every day.
And boy, the propaganda against him just mounts all the time. The idea of actually revealing the truth is getting more and more remote, just like with Trump, who was going to reveal the JFK assassination.
Right.
If you're going to dump all the evidence out, then you as the president, you as the attorney general, you as the FBI director have got a duty to the American people to put it together. Don't just throw a bunch of puzzle pieces out on the table and say, here's a bunch of puzzle pieces for you guys to ponder over the next 4 years while we go on with our program. No, you got to put the puzzle together for us. That's what we paid you for.
Right.
Put it together for us.
Put it together for us. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And then come out and announce, that President Kennedy was killed by a combination of, this, that, and the other guy, and live with it, It's like they say, like the Bible says, that you shall know the truth and the truth will set you free. When are we going to know the truth? That's what I want to know.
Well, looks like we've run out of time. You're still looking at the comments.
Yeah, I didn't want to miss anybody. Corky again with all of the science. And Crooks was not the shooter. I think that's another thing that we'll never know. Who actually was the shooter at the Butler, Pennsylvania rally where Trump got his ear nicked and a couple other people got shot and one guy got killed. Are we ever going to know the answer to that?
No.
And this is within the last 6 months. Why are we continuing to bury these facts, except for that there's very powerful forces behind the scenes that are making sure that we remain dumb and usable and expendable.
The hidden hand, as you call it.
Yeah, the hidden hand. Thanks, Marcia.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for some great conversation and comments and insights.
Well, I guess we better wrap it up then.
Yeah. Hope everyone has a great weekend. Enjoy some spring weather.
All right, everybody. Again, and happy Easter to all those who celebrate. And
oh, indeed, yes.
Yeah, and I hope all the children get all their Easter eggs or whatever they're doing nowadays.
That's right.
We used to have to blow the eggs out of the little shell, and then we had to paint them. Did you do that?
We didn't empty them out. We had hard-boiled eggs.
Oh no, we had to, it would make your
Yep.
your ears pop out,
But
right.
Yeah, the dyeing the eggs.
All right. Well,
don't overdo the chocolate.
Yes, but let the children have fun. All right, the Maryland Home Companion Show is off the air. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye now.